I recall also that a decision was taken to pursue the option of raising bonds to pay for the debt that government owed to SMEs. Together, these two activities were to generate about 8 billion Ghana cedis that would have enabled the banks to capitalize with their own money without having to go down like they have done. But we also believe that it was important to introduce minimum capital in order to strengthen the capital base of our banks. In this regard, Mr. President, your team worked very hard to ensure that we agreed a minimum capital requirement of 230 million, not 400 million, and there was a reason. We agreed that not all banks require the same capital. And so whilst we provided a base of 230 million, we will then work with individual banks to determine their levels of risk and be able to determine the appropriate capital that that particular bank needs in order to have small and big banks operate in a risk-free environment. We call that the internal capital assessment, project, which was meant to enable us actually handhold the banks and work with them to come out of the challenges and not to collapse them at the least excuse. And so, fast forward, when we lost power, these people took over. When they took over, it was talk of war between shareholders, directors, and banks. They introduced a minimum capital, and they were so impatient they couldn't wait for the time to come. So anytime they look at the watch, how many days are we left? So we're left 4 months. Let's go and tell them that it's left 4 months. Oh. And when they do that, of course, depositors become alarmed. So they go and take the monies from the bank, and the banks become weaker. So the end result is that the country had to go through a very difficult period of this exercise. The end result of this is that as a poor country as us, we have so far, by the end of 2019, we would have spent 20.46 billion. 20.46 billion would have spent by this country by 2019 just to collapse the banks. And we were in search of how much capital. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia tells us that the capital that we gleaned out of this was about 4 billion. I have a table that will show you that out of that money, only 2 billion was what we realized from fresh injection. The other was sitting on the books of the banks who just transferred to their capital. So in search of 4 billion, as per Bawumia's figures, we spent 20.46 billion to look for 4 billion. Adam Smith, even in his PS, in those days, they would have sacked him from Ghana before he destroys the country. But we are in a democracy, so we can't do that. But we also realize that even in an attempt to address this problem, there was serious political victimization. Some people were described in various forms in order to take their banks. We are aware of the instance of Heritage Bank where they said once you have a case in court, they must as well declare that you are not fit and proper. We recall that they said somebody has about 60 or 70% in a bank, and so the bank is overexposed to that person. But I have on authority somebody who has 99% of a bank, with his wife holding 1%. And that bank is still alive. So the challenge we have had with our banking sector is not just the fact that it has eroded confidence, but the performance. And I want to show a video here, a chart. It will show you clearly that, Your Excellency, your banking sector that you left is the envy of today. Okay, so these are the bank's capitalization. They transferred 2.4 billion straight from their books. They didn't bring anything. You can go to the next one. Yes, this is the fresh injection that came, 2.2 billion. So where is Bawumia getting the 4 billion from? This is all we got as cash. And I've shown you all the banks. You can verify. Let's move to the next slide. And so this is a sign, a bar chart of basically showing the composition of our recapitalization. But this is it. Look at the amounts of money that I have indicated against the collapse of the banks. 2019, we are projecting to spend 6.14 billion more. In fact, the total for 2019 is 8.5 billion. More to be wasted on collapsing financial institutions. So a country that cannot provide printed material for students to write exams before they go home, and they are now learning through the chalkboard. This is what we are doing with our money.